George, thank you so much for being here today. I am really excited about our conversation. You are a male companion based in Australia, but this has not always been your line of work. Can you talk about your corporate career and how you decided to make a pivot into your current occupation?
Yeah, look, I would love to, Megan, and thank you so much. Such an honor and a delight to be invited onto your show.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm in Australia where sex work is legal,
Mhm.
completely legal, and I'm now 53 years old. So I'd worked in the corporate sector and in government for some 30 years until 2 years ago, I made the very unusual pivot and shift to become a straight male escort. So it's not the sort of career perhaps my parents might have thought about or dreamed of for me, but, and as we can explore a bit more, it has been the most magical and beautiful and synergistic move for me. And in summary, I was made redundant in a job that I was doing a couple of years ago. And prior to that, I dated extensively for some 10, 12 years. I've had two long-term relationships, and one was monogamous. The other is one where I cheated, and not proud of that, but
Mhm.
I own that. And that ended 12 years ago. And so then I sort of, in terms of my relationship style, I became ethically non-monogamous. And then 2 years ago, moved into this work. So it's been an evolution. It's been a really fascinating journey. And as I'll explain as we go, it's something I'm deeply passionate about in terms of why I do it and what results it can bring to my clientele.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you made this change, what did your friends and family think or say, or did you share it? Or, how did you, it must have been a surprise for people.
Yes and no. It's funny. My family, who I'm very close to,
Mhm.
they, it was interesting. My mum said, you know, nothing would surprise me about you. I have an older sister and an older brother, and I've had a son who's about to turn 28. And they were all super cool about it. My son is like, yeah, good work, Dad. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And what was fascinating, later that evening, we had a family dinner, and my sister said to my mum, Mum, would you feel the same way if it was me?
Mm.
My mum said, oh, yes, of course I would. I call bullshit. But then to my friends, I've got a large group of good friends, particularly male friends that I've known for like 45 years. And we have a WhatsApp group chat. And when I told them about it, they were blown away. They were fascinated. They asked me all the questions you might expect. But interestingly, it didn't take long before the questions dropped off. They didn't
Mm.
want to know anything.
Mm.
And that's curious because all of them are in long-term relationships. And I think what happened is that I presented to them something that perhaps was a bit confronting.
Yeah.
It didn't, you know, they've, regardless, look, I don't know whether they're happily married or happily partnered, what their sex is like. And here I am coming along presenting an alternative option that it's like them looking in the mirror and they don't want to see this. So that's a really fascinating observation.
That is really fascinating. And has sex work always been legal in Australia, or has this been a recent development?
No, it hasn't always. In the last few years working in this industry, I've come across many people who have worked in it for far longer than I have. And I think it was around about in here in New South Wales, which is
Hmm.
the state that I'm in. I think it's been since around about the late 1990s that it has been legal.
Okay.
So there were periods before that where it was definitely underground,
Hmm.
although there was elements of obviously the police knowing and all the underhanded things going on. But and there is still one state in Australia that's called South Australia where it is still illegal.
Mm.
But yes, it's I think it's tremendous that it's totally legal to do what I do,
Hmm.
and it does fascinate me that the US still outlaws it.
Yeah.
It sort of blows my my
Even though
small
it's
mind.
prevalent. Yeah. Why do you think, I'm just curious, like, what is your perception of why the US still hasn't legalized it?
That is that I don't have a short answer for that
Mm-hmm.
long question, but you know, the first thing I think about is Las Vegas
Hmm.
or or politicians who've seen escorts. It's
Hmm.
like it blows my mind. I cannot get my head around
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
It's sort of I do believe there's religious
Yeah.
connotations and the far right and all those things, but I don't live there. I won't
Right.
speculate.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah. It's
they're the things people
interesting.
in Australia like. We do look at America for many things, and that's just one tiny example. There are so many more where we're like, really,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
really.
I think it has to do a lot with religious reasons. But as a woman, it it would be so much safer for women. It would reduce sex trafficking. It would reduce so many. I think the positives would outweigh the negatives, but I don't think we as a country are ready to go there, especially right now with the political climate and the religious fervor that is happening. So anyway, it's interesting that there's one state that it currently is not legal. And back to the idea of your friends and the questions sort of dying off and being in relationships and you know, obviously sex and intimacy is a huge part of relationships. Again, it's really foreign to me where it's like, oh, that's just something you can go and, you know, take
Secure.
care of for yourself, right? Like completely legal, you could do it outside of permission of anyone else. How do you find clients or should I say how do clients find you?
Yeah, look, good question. I guess what I will say to as a prelude to that is that
Hmm.
certainly here in Australia, there's been more mainstream media doing coverage of the fact that women can reach out to male escorts.
Hmm.
It's become something of an intrigue, and you or your listeners may have seen that film, the Hollywood film, Good Luck to You, Leo Grand. And if you haven't, it features Emma Thompson
Hmm.
as an older woman who's never had anything exciting happen in her life. And she hires a male escort, a young man. And I single-handedly put a lot of credit to that film for highlighting the opportunity for women to ask for what they want and destigmatizing sex work. But to your question, I have a website
Hmm.
and I've done a lot of media. That's why I
Hmm.
love talking to people like yourself,
Yeah.
because it's about normalizing it and
Hmm.
not making it something that should be taboo. And I've traveled extensively, and so what I find here in Australia is that we are more liberally minded in many ways.
Hmm.
And look, I've also been in the sort of the swinging and kink scene for quite some time. And there's a lot more media coverage around those things as well, in very much mainstream media.
Hmm.
And the number of people who are opening up to alternative relationships, like ethically non-monogamous,
Hmm.
is really growing.
Hmm.
And so it's at a time when there's growth in that social aspect of acceptance of things,
Hmm.
and certainly female empowerment, where women have really tired of online dating.
Hmm.
And I would stress that's probably one of the most important factors,
Hmm.
that women who are independent, intelligent, and just want a good man, not someone who is just going to be the next future ex-husband. And they've got to a certain age and they're not going to look after a man anymore.
Hmm.
And they could be in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and what have you. And they want quality, not quantity.
Hmm.
So they go on the dating apps, they find it soul destroying and incredibly time consuming. And they're then wondering, well, what is the alternative?
Hmm.
And that I'm certain is driving more women to Googling, searching for people like myself.
Yeah. I talked to friends prior to our conversation and was sort of like, what questions do you have? And my straight girlfriends. I should say I have straight girlfriends and non-straight girlfriends and gay guy friends. This no straight guy friends in this conversation whatsoever. And in the gay community, very different, like very different conversations and mores and things like that. So my straight girlfriends, and I'm 42, were echoing a lot of what you said of like, oh my God, that sounds great. Like, it's not a matter of if you want to go out and sleep with someone, that is not difficult. Like, that is not a difficult thing to do whatsoever.
Exactly.
Safety came up as one of the top reasons why someone might be interested in this for us. And then also being able to sort of choose your experience. A lot of us were joking, but sort of not joking of like, I would love to like fold the laundry and cuddle on the couch. Like,
I love that.
and so I think to what you were saying of female empowerment and choosing that experience and quality over quantity, whatever that looks like for you, that came up a lot. And I think I'm going to make an assumption that that's probably pretty foreign to a lot of straight guys, like thinking about sex and intimacy that way. How do you work with clients in terms of determining, and your website is wonderful, by the way, and very
Oh, thank
professional,
you.
very easy to navigate, great photos, and you have different options on there. But when you're working
Yes.
with clients, how do you walk through with them what they're interested in, their boundaries, your boundaries, all of that? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, look, I love this question, Megan, because it comes to the heart of what it is that I offer. So compared to, say, a woman working in an establishment, uh, brothel, whatever
Hmm.
words you choose, they can have a booking for, say, 15 minutes,
Hmm.
where my minimum booking is 2 hours.
Hmm.
Women don't want that, that quick thing. So when I get an inquiry from a woman through my website or where I advertise, I I filter very quickly. It's all about because this is about me as well. I don't take every booking request.
Hmm.
So I'm all about communication. And my years and years and years of dating has fine-tuned, I guess, the way I want to interact with women. So if I get the point where I think they're genuine, I will
Hmm.
insist on a phone call. And what that does, it allows us to get a bit of a sense of one another because if they've seen my website, they've seen my photographs, they've seen what I offer, but I need to know who they are, where they're at, like in terms of bit of the background of their relationship, history, have they had trauma, what are they searching for? Because if I'm not the right escort for them, I don't want to pretend because I can't pretend.
Right.
So we have to establish rapport. I then request a couple of photographs because I'm a highly visual person.
Hmm.
So that helps me, in my mind, think, okay, now I've heard about what this client is hoping to achieve. We do, we always talk around boundaries, and I've done lots of work around trauma-informed consent and relationships. So I make it clear I'm not a psychologist,
Right.
but everything around what we're going to create is absolutely important and it's always consent based. So by the time we actually meet in person, and I can say hand on heart that every experience I've had has been a positive one
Hmm.
because of that process and that making sure we're aligned and being very clear with them about if you ever need to pause or stop and all those types of things. I've done
Hmm.
tons of work around consent, but it's
Hmm.
more about the simple things of do you even want to get intimate?
Right.
Or it could be like it's classified as a boyfriend experience
Hmm.
where we might just meet, we'll have lunch, might go out to an art gallery, or do something just like that where there is never any expectation of anything sexual at all.
Hmm.
And if I can just give you one quick example,
Yeah.
the very first client that I saw a few years ago, it was so lovely. She had not been with a man for at least 12 years.
Hmm.
And we met. She was very nervous. That's quite common. I was nervous, but I had
Yeah.
to hide that because it was my first client. And yes, we did have sex, but what's more important is when we organised the next date, she said to me, "Look, George, when we do this, would you hold my hand?"
Mhm.
Because we were going out to someplace. And I said, "Oh, yes, of course I'll hold your hand." She said, "No one's held my hand in 12 years."
Yeah.
So there is so much lacking of human connection and loneliness and just the basic things that most of us take for granted.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I really lean into the companionship and the caring and the kindness. And that is by far the most important part of what I do.
Yeah. It's a lot of questions from that. One of the questions that I was thinking about as we were talking is what if you just don't like someone? Because you certainly have minimum 2 hour experiences, but then could be a weekend. It could be a very extended period of time, but it sounds like you've had very positive experiences because of this. Have you ever been in a situation where you're like, oh, I'm not going to see this person again, not necessarily because of anything, just personality wise, like you don't get along or
There's
prefer.
only been there's only been one, but I'll
Hmm.
come to that in a moment. But
Hmm.
I would never accept a weekend booking straight off the bat. You know, that's a lot. If you can
Yeah.
imagine the amount of emotional investment that
Yeah.
requires.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would be healthy for either one of us.
Hmm.
So my recommendation for a first booking is perhaps 2 or 4 hours.
Hmm.
And again, like I'd alluded to, it's all about the filtering. And I've
Hmm.
got a good sense of who I will be attracted to and why.
Hmm.
And that's where the phone call, photographs, help me just find something beautiful about a woman.
Sure.
And even at that point, I have knocked back one or two clients because I'm just not feeling it.
Yeah.
And I've got to be very diplomatic because imagine you're a woman of a certain age and you've
Sure.
reached out finally to an escort, and then they knock you back. That
Right.
could be really hard to hear.
Yeah.
So in those circumstances, I've had to say something like, "Look, I'm really sorry, but it's so important for me to feel a good energetic connection,
Hmm.
and in order to be authentic. And unfortunately, I'm not feeling that with you.
Yeah.
If you would like, I'm happy to recommend one or two other escorts who I personally know.
Hmm.
And that's the softest way I can
Yeah.
say no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because my reason for doing this is really important. And I don't need the money and I won't accept money for something that I don't feel really into. So anyway, that's one issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I do, and because of all those reasons, I do find that there's something attractive about the clients that I see,
Hmm.
and there's a beauty in them, and that is that's the that's the magic that I find. I see something in them that whatever their backstory is, they've come to a point where they've been bold enough and brave enough to reach out to an escort,
Hmm.
and that's when I shine and I just give them the beauty of the experience.
Right.
So yeah, 2 4 hours, totally fine. I was with a beautiful client last year and she took me to Scotland for a week. Now that's a big commitment of time
Yeah.
and money. And she's amazing. We're still dear friends. And we had to have long conversations beforehand and during and after about how do we manage our own time and our own space. And I've got to say, it was not easy. That was the first time I'd spent more than 24 hours with a client.
Hmm.
So from 24 hours to another country and a week. And we did very well in terms of talking openly every day, checking
Hmm.
in, having our own downtime. But my goodness, it taught me a great deal. So yeah, there's a lot of nuances that go on.
So, for that particular example, and I do want to ask about boundaries in a second, and maybe this is like a nice segue into it, but like, do you like sit next to each other on the plane? Do you talk about like one room, two rooms, downtime? Like, the downtime part is really interesting to me because if you're with a partner, like you typically don't even talk about downtime. It's just like, hey, we're going on this trip to Scotland. It's going to be great. You assume you're sitting, there's a lot of assumptions. Like you're sitting next to each other
Yes.
on the plane, you're sharing the same room, you're doing XYZ. How did how did you navigate that? And then also into the larger conversation, like how do you maintain boundaries and how do you take care of yourself and your emotions and, you know, everything that you personally need? Because obviously this is so, it's not like another job where you can just turn it on, turn it off. This is you. And like you said, you're creating this authentic experience.
Yeah, they're two discrete questions.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's separate them. So I'll go to the first one here, Megan. So when the client and I traveled to Scotland, yes, we sat next to each other on the aeroplane and we had discussed extensively beforehand how are we going to do this,
Okay.
but still discussing
Yeah.
and doing are two different things.
Yeah.
So, for instance, we stayed in the same hotel for a week.
Hmm.
It was one bedroom, and even though we'd allocated a certain amount of time out each day,
Hmm.
the weather wasn't wonderful.
Yeah.
It's Scotland,
To Scotland. Yeah.
and yes, and so I might have an hour off each day, but I was still in the lounge room of the place, and she was like within 5 meters
Sure.
of me. So it 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 the theory was great. The practicality was very challenging
Yeah.
because I didn't feel that I could just lay down and just do what I would do otherwise
Right.
because I was constantly thinking, well, she's paying me good money to be here. And we did over the course of that week had some challenges. And like like I mentioned earlier, we're still very good friends, and I think she's absolutely delightful. We did the best that we could,
Sure.
but my goodness, I learned a lot from that.
Yeah.
Insofar as that, if I'm was to do that again, and I am doing something similar again in a few weeks,
Hmm.
I need to have time out,
Hmm.
like more than an hour a day.
Hmm.
I like preferably 2 days to myself. So there's a lot involved in that, and that could be an extensive podcast in itself.
Yeah.
So that is that was a great lesson, and it's because when you're being paid like anything, if I was there with a partner, totally different story. We've all traveled with a partner, and we know how we get along and all these type of things. But for a woman that I'd not met that long before,
Hmm.
didn't really know all the nuances of her, and it's a lot to cram into a week where you're together 24/7. So to the second part of the question, what do I do for myself?
Hmm.
It's it is really important because self-care is critical for all of us in
Hmm.
every day. So I have a 4 day a week day job as well. So, I have that, and then I have my escorting work, and that can be quite busy. So I was saying to you just off air that over the weekend I was in Brisbane, which is
Hmm.
in Queensland, Australia here, and I had three clients. Two of them were overnight, and I need to get myself in the right headspace
Hmm.
so that I can be fully present. So when I'm with the client, I don't look at my phone. I'm just there for them, and that's emotionally taxing. It's draining. So I've got to regulate my own emotions in whichever way I can.
Hmm.
And look, for many years, I've had a very good work-life balance, and I would say I'm very good at being able to find my own space. That could be simple things for me, like I live by the beach, so I get to the beach every day, all year round, as much whenever I can. Or it could be just taking time out to not talk to anyone, sit with a book, take myself out for a meal,
Hmm.
and then just get myself ready to be on
Yeah.
again. And after the last few days, now I'm back at home, and this is my time to replenish my
Right.
batteries. So yeah, it's a lot, and it's not something that most people could do.
Yeah.
So it's a very challenging job to do, but for me and my personality and the man that I am, it works pretty well.
Yeah. And then I think about safety a lot in terms of female sex work. How do you stay safe even from a physical? I know that may not come up often, but like, how do you make sure that you are physically, not just emotionally safe when you're meeting with clients? And I imagine obviously that vetting process, but almost like you said, you talk about things ahead of time and then there's the reality portion of it. Has that ever been a challenge?
Yeah, look, safety is a major issue. And before I talk about me, what I will
Hmm.
say is that women who work in the sex industry
Hmm.
have far more concerns than I do.
Hmm.
I'm a white middle-aged man
Right.
with all that privilege that just, you know, that I was born into. So I'm super grateful of that. And the reason that women reach out to people like me is because of safety. Safety is always number one because the alternatives, whether that be online dating or what have you, carries an inherent risk. And I am a professional. So as much as you might see a psychologist or doctor, their reputation is everything. And
Hmm.
that's the same for me.
Right.
So if I give a bad experience or I do something that doesn't make them feel comfortable, then I won't have any work.
Right.
So it's they're investing their time and their money into someone like me because they feel that they can be safe and they can read my testimonials
Right.
and if I did a bad job, yeah, I would be outed and just what
Yeah.
have you. But in terms of my safety, I'm very fortunate that I don't have issues like that either.
Hmm.
So where women can work in a brothel and there's security cameras and they're looked after, not to say that things can't happen there,
Sure.
but for me, there is no agency, there's no brothels for men. So I have to do all of my marketing and that's fine. I love that. I've not yet and it does come back to the filtering thing that we discussed. I've not had any concerns for my safety.
Hmm.
That's not to say it won't happen. So some of my clients are in relationships and their partners don't know. So I need to be very careful about, well, what if the partner, the husband finds out
Yeah.
and comes after me? So in those situations, and there's only a few, I will make clear to the woman. I'll say what okay, tell me what your situation is. How
Hmm.
do I avoid perhaps having a nasty experience with your husband or partner
Hmm.
if they find out? Because I need to be on guard.
Hmm.
And but it hasn't happened. But I know other sex workers, other male sex workers in the industry who have been targeted by not just by male partners, but by stalkers,
Hmm.
women. And I've had people make accusations against me that are completely false
Hmm.
and that at the risk of ruining my reputation, they will say things that are completely outlandish.
Hmm.
And as a man, when there's an accusation against you for doing whatever it might be, you're always on the back foot.
Right.
And I'm not, again, respecting my gratitude, but I'm putting myself out there publicly.
Right.
And if people choose to want to say, lies and what have you about me, and they have done, I need to, I guess, be ready for that.
Right.
And I know my truth. I know exactly who I am and the man that I am and the honorable man that I am. So yeah, that's always a concern. So
Yeah.
safety comes in many different flavors and aspects.
Yeah. I guess I hadn't thought about the, I was thinking very much about physical safety, but even afterward, if someone makes an accusation, like how do you prove or disprove that? Like I didn't think about
Yes.
that at all, which yeah, that's got to be really hard. And have you found that this work has impacted any personal romantic relationships or no?
No, and this is the surprising thing, Megan, that because I've been ethically non-monogamous for a decade or more, I had imagined that that would make women less attracted to me.
Mhm.
But I've always been very honest. So let's say on dating sites, I would say, hey, look, this is who I am. I'm not looking for the one or whatever phrase you choose to use.
Mhm.
And and maybe it's different here than in the States, I don't know. But there are far more people who are open to that. Like, yeah, cool. Yeah, me too, or I'm open to that. And then 2 years ago, starting this work, I thought that would make me even less appealing.
Mhm.
But that hasn't happened.
Hmm.
I do have a number of lovers, and they completely respect and honor what I do.
Mhm.
And I think a big part of it is that I'm honest with them,
Yeah.
and they know it's my job. And yeah, I can separate between my job and my private life.
Mhm.
And I am single, happily single.
Mhm.
So I think there's a big difference between people who are in a primary relationship compared to me.
Mhm.
And I think that would, well, and I know many situations where that's very difficult for sex workers, where particularly if their partner's not in the industry at all,
Mhm.
they find it really difficult to accept. It's not been the case for me at all.
Yeah.
And look, I don't know whether there's anything unusual about that, but it certainly works for me, and I'm so happy about it.
Yeah. And can you, for listeners who may not know, and actually, so I make sure that we're on the same page, can you define what ethical non-monogamy is and how did you, I know you talked about this a little bit in the beginning of your relationship history, but how did you come to it? Because I think at least in the States, it's been a public conversation relatively recently. I don't think it's a recent phenomenon, but I think people are talking about it more now.
Yeah, look, I'd love to. So let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
Monogamy is monogamy. You are with your partner only, and nothing else happens outside of that agreement.
Hmm.
Non-monogamy is often cheating.
Hmm.
One or both of you are having an affair,
Hmm.
and in many ways, society sort of accepts that. It's like, yeah, okay, well, you know, we know it happens. But ethical non-monogamy is where you are very clear with your partner or your partners that you're not exclusive with that person. So you've had conversations, you've got an agreement about what is acceptable and what's not. And it can be extraordinarily complex because it involves more than one person.
Hmm.
It involves, well, involves more than two people, involves emotions, but it's about being very honest
Hmm.
about, you might say to your partner, for example, look, I'm now interested in seeing someone else.
Hmm.
How does that work? How do we manage to navigate the communication around that? So, as I sort of alluded to earlier, my first relationship while I was married, that was
Hmm.
completely monogamous.
Hmm.
We didn't ever see no one else. There was no cheating. Second one I had, I cheated quite a lot in that relationship. I'm not proud of it,
Hmm.
but I did. And I didn't like doing that. I felt terrible, apart from the fact that I made the relationship really damaged. So once that ended, I figured there's got to be a different way. There's got to be a way that I can express myself while not cheating and not being a nasty person to the woman that I love. And so over those intervening 12 or so years, that's what I've explored.
Hmm.
I have had some short-term monogamous relationships
Hmm.
up to say 2 years,
Hmm.
but in my heart, I I don't fit into the mold of just a one-on-one relationship. And that's not for everyone. I know
Sure.
that very much, but it's me. I'm not hurting other people
Yeah.
because the honesty brings openness. And so that's what's really profound and important for
Hmm.
me. And as we were just talking about, that means that the fact that I do have partners, lovers, is that they appreciate that I've got this work life. I've also got my personal and private life where I
Yeah.
do see other women as well. So it's not for the faint-hearted. It really is not. And I've talked more people out of it
Uh-huh.
than I've encouraged because it requires two things fundamentally for me. It's emotional intelligence and incredible communication.
Hmm.
And if you don't have either of those things, then do not enter.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm exhausted thinking about your schedule, actually. It feels
So
like a
am I.
lot. Well, thank you for defining that and also thank you for, talking about your personal experience with that. And you have worked with women of a variety of generations, right? Like, and do you find that the interests and their approach to intimacy and or sex is different at different stages of life?
Yeah, look, I certainly do. So my clientele ranged from around 35 to 80.
Hmm.
And in the midst of all that, menopause is a very common thing. And menopause affects women in all the ways that can be wildly different.
Yeah, tell me about it, George.
And yeah, I'm not going to mansplain here, Megan.
No, no, no. It's just like I said, I'm 42 and my girlfriends typically are like a little bit younger to me to like 50s, early 60s. It's like all we talk about. Like it's like, oh my God, like you're a
Uh-huh.
teenager, but in a totally different way. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So, look,
No,
I
I'm
might just
actually
give you
glad
one.
that you mentioned it though, because again, I don't culturally not sure. We do not
Yes,
talk about it in the US. We
yes.
I think it's becoming more of a conversation, but I was like, wait, what is perimenopause? What is this? Like,
Wow.
so anyway, go ahead.
It is becoming far, I'm so happy to say that it's becoming far more prevalent in public discourse over
Hmm.
here. And I met up with a friend of mine in Brisbane just a few days ago. She's about 45. She's working in sexuality space. She's not a sex worker, but she
Hmm.
runs courses about perimenopause and menopause for both women and for men.
Hmm.
So that if you're a male with a partner who's going through this, here
Yes.
is what you should know to
Yes.
be a better partner, a better lover. So yeah, I've sort of worked through the entire experience from women who are just definitely not menopausal yet, and they have their own issues around sex. It could
Hmm.
be they've they've had a background of trauma, or it
Sure.
could be they've just not felt ready to date. They might
Hmm.
be very introverted or private, and other clients who have just come out of a long-term relationship, but they don't feel they're sexually capable, or they don't feel they're good enough at sex, and they want a sexpert, for want of a better word,
Hmm.
to help them get better at doing whatever it is, so that they can then get out there and do that.
Hmm.
But then there's women who've are at various points in that menopause journey, and some women get the most incredible sex drive during perimenopause or in the midst of it or post. And I mentioned the upper limit being 80.
Hmm.
That's an absolutely beautiful woman, and she has the highest sex drive of any woman I've ever met
Wow.
in my life. It's an inspiration for anyone.
Yeah.
And but it's look, it's not to I'm not trying to sensationalize it, but there is such an absolute vastness of difference.
Hmm.
And what I get to observe, Megan, is the private lives and, in many cases, the secret lives of women that they don't share.
Hmm.
Some of them don't even tell anyone.
Hmm.
There's a couple of clients who they wouldn't even tell their best friend what they've done. But I can assure you, because they tell me, that their friends notice something has shifted, something's different
Hmm.
about them,
Yeah.
and they don't know what. They just see this lightness, and this is leads into the most important reason why I do this.
Hmm.
It's about bringing empowerment and confidence and just joy to women's lives. That's why I do it. It's the money is a lovely side effect
Sure.
for me, and it's just remarkable what I observe through the time that I spend with women, and it absolutely does not need to involve sex at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think to your point, I didn't take it as sensationalizing. I mean, we are sexual beings. And that's something that's important to a lot of people, most people, frankly. So
Yes.
it's not sensationalizing. And I think it's wonderful that giving the example of your client in their 80s, like it doesn't go away. Like it's still part of you and to a varying degree. But I love that she's still exploring that and entertaining that and enjoying that. And the the intimacy and the presence that you're able to bring is so important. I'm curious if you have any thoughts that you want to share about porn or OnlyFans or this, oh my God, like this whole world of AI and who knows what that's. I mean, I don't know if you've heard this, but people falling in love with like their AI chatbot,
I
things
have,
like that. Do
yes.
you have any thoughts around any of that and what, what that's doing?
I do, certainly do. Firstly, I don't watch porn.
Hmm.
Haven't watched porn for years. I'm a very visual person
Hmm.
and it does nothing for me.
Hmm.
I'm very sapiosexual, and for
Hmm.
people who don't know what that term is, I'm turned on by intelligence. So if I were to watch porn, I know it's fake. I know it's not good. And what concerns me greatly is that it depicts a type of sex act that is not good for either person.
Hmm.
It's for, and just talking in a heteronormative way here, men or young men in particular think that women want to be slapped and choked, and that's what they want. So, and yes, there's variations of more ethical porn, but I still think it leads to a whole bunch of sexual dysfunction. There's so many men who suffer from premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction because that's what they're attuned to.
Hmm.
That's all they know. It's about watching, getting off. So yeah, look, I have a real problem with porn. I
Hmm.
think it teaches us the wrong messages about
Hmm.
intimacy.
It's
As for
very
OnlyFans,
violent. Like it's very violent.
it is.
And I think that exactly to your point, as I have two kids and I have a son who's a teenager who will probably I know he doesn't listen to this podcast, but would kill me if I'm saying this. But what I have talked to him about is that is fantasy, but whose fantasy is it? It's
Yes.
very violent. And I have a daughter, and we haven't talked about it. She's younger, but it's also, I'm scared about what she perceives if she is straight, like what she
Mm,
perceives straight sex is and her role. And it's I'm not necessarily anti-porn, but it is very scary to me, like what is out there and what you can find and what is normalized when what
yes.
you and I have been talking about is such joy, right? Like it's such
Yeah,
joy and
it is.
interactive and co-created. So I'm with you there. It's a little
You know,
scary.
Megan, this is what I provide is the antithesis of porn.
Correct. Correct.
You know, I'm 11 or 12 years older than you, but
Hmm.
in when I grew up, there was Playboy magazine,
Hmm.
and that was it. And but porn is now free and completely available, and it's full on. It's
Hmm.
intense. And a dear friend of mine who has worked in the sex industry for 40 years, and she owns some establishments.
Hmm.
She's had to put signs on her venue saying extended booking does not include choking or slapping.
Hmm.
That's how far it's come.
Well.
So but to OnlyFans, look, I'm all about people being able to express themselves.
Hmm.
I do have issues and concerns around people that are, as an example, I don't know whether you know this particular person, Bonnie Blue.
Yes.
Yes. So she's famous for wanting to sleep with 1,000 men
Hmm.
that are barely legal.
Hmm.
Now that really bothers me. I think it's if it were the other way around, if it was a man wanting to sleep with 1,000 barely legal women, there would be utter outrage.
Hmm.
And I think she's doing no one any good by doing that. She is leaning into that narrative of it's just about the sex. It's just
Hmm.
about the just have sex with me and that's it. And that again is getting into the narrative of young people like, oh, that's what women want.
Hmm.
It's not what they want. And if the woman of your age, I'm sure that you talk to your female friends as you do, they'll be like, absolutely not. That is not what I want for me, and it's not what I want for my kids.
Hmm.
And back to AI, yes, I've heard about the people falling in love with their AI, and it it baffles me, but I'm I'm confident that the work that I do will not be overtaken by AI
Yeah.
because physical touch, like holding a hand, stroking, cuddling,
Hmm.
those things are the most important elements in what I provide.
Right.
And you can't fake that. Well, who knows what AI might do in the future? But
Right.
seriously, it
Well, yeah.
is, yeah, there's so much more to the substance of humans and the humanity and who we are and what we crave and require.
Yeah. It's such an interesting time because I think we are having to confront what makes us human, right? And what again, I think the reason I shouldn't say I think, I would assume that part of the reason that individuals are creating parasocial relationships with AI is because they are lacking that human connection and that intimacy and even in a
Oh,
in a non-sexual way. But when you have, I'm guilty of it when I'm using OpenAI and they're like, great idea, Megan. And I'm like, oh, thanks. And I'm like, wait, you're a large language model. Like it's like I'm
yes,
just talking to
yes,
myself. So
yeah.
it is again, the work that you're doing and involved with is the antithesis to it. So yeah, it's really interesting how we have to confront our humanity right now, what makes us human and what how we're going to move forward as a species in that regard. Is there anything, I've loved this conversation. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure listeners know or that you're really passionate about?
Yeah, look, there's many, but I'll summarize it.
Who's your
So
favorite
look,
football team? No.
oh no, don't. I hate sports. No,
Oh
but
my God,
look,
George, you are the full package. Okay, this is great.
oh, okay. I'm blushing here. So look, th to sum it up for me, Megan, the what really drives me is, if it's not abundantly clear, is my passion and my love for connection
Yeah.
and the beauty that I see in women who have maybe never experienced something like this,
Hmm.
and or who have had it but they're lacking and they just want to get to know who they are again
Hmm.
or transform into the next version of themselves. I see this over and over, and it's such an absolute privilege to witness this and be a part of their journey.
Hmm.
So I have two, I suppose, goals in mind. One is to make women feel that they absolutely can and should reach out for a professional service like what I provide.
Hmm.
And it's so unfortunate that it's illegal in your country because it's simple. It's a desire for touch
Hmm.
and human connection. We were in the middle of a loneliness epidemic.
Hmm.
But I also want to teach men how to do better because, like we've discussed, dating sites are pretty gutter, low quality men. And I can't teach women how to ask for what they want if then the men are not stepping up to the plate.
Yeah.
So that's really important to me, as is the education around your porn and but more like it fundamentally comes down to human connection.
Hmm.
We are meant to be together.
Yeah.
And the fact that, as I said to you offline, that I was deleted from Instagram today by, in their terms, promoting sexual activity, but all I was saying is that I'm an escort available for bookings. The fact of the matter is, how did we come into being? The human species happens because we procreate.
Hmm.
So that censorship bothers me greatly as well. But anyway, the most important thing I want to leave your listeners with is that sensuality and human connection is absolutely fundamental to who we are.
Hmm.
I provide a service. If you don't like that, that's fine. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything.
You're not forcing
I'm,
anyone. Yeah.
oh no,
Yeah,
no,
you're not
but
forcing anyone to hire you. Yeah.
no, it's supply and demand. As they
Right.
say, the oldest industry in the world.
Hmm.
So I'm just providing the very best service that I can as a straight, mature man. And if people choose to see me, which they do, then beautiful. And I can leave them better than I found.
Yeah. What do you love most about this work that you're doing? And I'll have a little asterisk on that actually. And what parallels do you see between this work and your corporate experience?
Okay, well, that's a tricky one. I'll have to come back to that
Okay,
one,
okay.
but I'll think about it while I'm talking.
Yeah.
You know, multitasking, man,
Yeah.
who knows if I can do that. But what I love most is when I have had a session with a client and they are just beaming.
Hmm.
And I had one just yesterday, and I had one the day before, and they there are so many of them where I've been able to do something extraordinary and exquisite. And I find that it's my ego is not involved because we've had those conversations, we've got to the point of connecting, I've paid deep attention to what it is that they're after, and I've been able to deliver that and some. And they are just like, whether it be laying back in bed or just after a social date, they are glowing and they're like walking, 2 foot taller.
Hmm.
And that's happened many times where perhaps their friends have said, "What's happened to you? What have you done?"
Right.
That is the most magnificent part of my job. That's what I absolutely love, and it will never grow old. Parallels to my private job. Oh my goodness, that's a tough one. It's all about, well, in my own private life, I'm all about passion and caring and
Hmm.
kindness. So, for example, my brother is a doctor, my sister is a social worker. So we're all in the business of intimacy and caring and kindness and love. So that's why when I mentioned earlier that about my family knowing, it's like, if you get rid of and you dispense of your stigma around sex, we're all doing similar things. I'm an intimacy professional.
Hmm.
I just make people feel good about themselves. My brother, stops them from dying. My sister sort of helps them understand their challenges.
Hmm.
So I don't see a difference there. Like
Yeah.
it's just the way we feel about it and the way we put project onto it. But if we can remove that, then we'll be a better place.
Yeah. And it's as you were talking, as you've been talking throughout this entire conversation, I don't want to make the assumption or put this label on women, but I think for many women, and this was myself at a certain point in my life, talking about your needs and your wants can be challenging. And, that's something that you created an environment where you allow that, right? And there may be some coaching, I'm sure that you do to get to that point. But something you just said, at the end of the day, so much of our human experience, also outside of intimacy and connection, is because of communication. And it's
Yes.
so important, whether it's, in your corporate life, whether it's in this work, whether it's with your friends, whether it's with, whatever, it's so hugely important. And that's critical. So it's just interesting how, again, we sort of stigmatize certain aspects, but at the end of the day, it's a it's a conversation that turns into something else. Like, that's
And,
really
and
it.
can I give you a
Please.
little example or two? So, for instance, I've had clients who are nurses or midwives, and their jobs are so giving, and they feel almost guilty to ask for what they want
Hmm.
when they're seeing me. And I have to stop and say, hang on a minute, this is about you. What do you want? And that can actually make them feel uncomfortable
Hmm.
because they've never felt safe to do that, to ask for that. And it's not just the profession, it could be based on their previous relationships. I'm like, hang on a minute, they might ask me what I want. I'm like, that's lovely, but you are paying me. Let's
Hmm.
remember, and I'm here to serve you and to give you something magical and unforgettable.
Hmm.
So it takes quite a bit of unpacking for them
Hmm.
sometimes to realize that they can actually, perhaps the first time in their lives, say, this is what I want. And even if they don't know what they want, that's when I will step in and I'll say, let me take care of things.
Hmm.
And to take that a little bit further, so let's say I've organized with a client to we're going to meet up at a certain time, and we're going out for a meal. I'll ask them if they've got any food allergies or
Hmm.
intolerances. And then I'll say, okay, I'll book the place. I'll pick you up this time. If you want, I'll even order. So they can just relax. Because
Hmm.
so many women are confronted by decision fatigue. Like every day, you've got to make all the decisions.
Hmm.
And you don't want a guy to ask you another one. Like, oh, is it okay if we go here or we go there? So, oh, for God's sake, just be a man and step up. And
Yeah.
and yeah, I can see from your expression, it's like, goodness, how, how
Like, I don't
nice
think
is it?
people understand, getting back to what you were saying about like the dating pool, a reservation goes a really long way. Like,
I
here's
know.
where we're going, and I'll pick you up at this time. Like, oh my
Please
God.
do.
Like, yeah.
Yes. I know some women like, well, to put it politely, like melt. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God, a
Yeah.
man is making a decision for me that he's looking after me.
Because you're being cared for. Like, that's ultimately what it
Exactly.
is. Yeah.
It is. And it's not about trading off your
No.
feminist views. So another example, recently, a dear client who I've seen a number of times, we had a weekend together
Hmm.
and it was in a lovely Airbnb. And I said to her, look, this is about you. It was this very stormy, cold, raining weekend, and it was perfect because there was an open fire, a full kitchen. I love to cook,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, you sit down, you relax, let me cook. You put on music, or I'll put
Hmm.
on music. And she was like beside herself, and she
Yeah.
wrote the most beautiful testimony. I was like, oh my God, George just did everything. She
Yeah.
could switch off. She didn't have to have a care in the world about her day-to-day life. And it's like, oh my God, yes, it's not that difficult, guys. You know,
Yeah.
just step up,
Yeah.
just be present, and just, oh, yeah. Look, I find it quite easy, but I acknowledge that it's rare for men to have this
Yeah.
awareness, and
Yeah.
that's why I do what I do.
Yeah. And you're a professional. And
Yes.
what advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh boy, I knew you were going to ask me this one, Megan, and it's so hard. It's just back yourself, I
Yeah.
suppose. Know that you don't always have the answers, and acknowledge that. Don't
Hmm.
I never pretend that you know everything because you don't, and you will always get things wrong.
Hmm.
But just be honest and be open and be transparent and say, I don't know if you don't know something, or ask questions. That's probably the most important thing. Be inquisitive, be
Hmm.
curious. We have two ears and one mouth. Use them in proportion. Ask more
Yeah.
than you say.
Yeah.
Listen more than you say.
Yeah.
And be observant because that will get you a long way in life, let alone in romantic connections. Just be attentive. And that's worked so far for me because I'm curious. And that's what works for me in terms of dating and certainly in terms of this escorting work.
Hmm. That's great. And then how can people find you?
Well, they can look at my website, which is hopefully you'll put that in the show
I will.
notes.
It'll be in the show notes. Yep.
Of course, it's georgegoulburn.com.
Yes.
And for some of you people who wouldn't know how to spell
Hmm.
that because it's not easy. It's www, well, the W's,
Sure.
of course. George, which people know, George, Goulburn, which is GOULBURN.com. GeorgeGoulburn.com. I would love to have given you my Instagram handle, but as I mentioned, I was deleted for daring to talk about sexual activity, which is how humans are born. So,
Which is like so wild. And I will just say this, like your Instagram page was the most tame, normal Instagram like account. And then you look at like IG models and it's like, wait, why were you delete whatever. It's like that's a whole other conversation.
Don't go there.
Yeah, exactly. Different conversation. So people can find you at georgegoulburn.com.
They
Like I
can.
said, it'll be in the show notes. You spelled it. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for taking so much time and sharing your experience, and I just
Oh,
really appreciate it.
thank you so much, Megan. It's been an absolute delight. And I hope your listeners enjoy what we've discussed. And yeah, if they want to reach out, reach out. No obligation for
Yeah,
bookings or anything.
yeah.
I love questions and I love conversation.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a good evening.
You too.